yourself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the professionals. Delighted to say I am joined by Mitch and Stu. How are you, lads?
Good, thanks.
Good, thanks, mate.
Good to see you. Good to see you. And let's start with something positive. Let's start with Harvey Barnes and Newcastle United doing business, Mitch, as they often do these days. Very quietly, we knew the signing was coming, but as usual, there was a few people raising concerns about the speed of the transfer. Why hadn't it gone through? I saw a few exchanges on social media this morning, but then boom, there he is. He's in the USA and he's in the squad for tonight's game.
Yeah, and we just need to let these people get on and do their job and not get overly dramatic about it and not lose their shit and not get knickers in a twist and not let the bed about it all. Just let them get on there, announce it when it's at the right time and when it's done and when everybody's happy with it. And I think going forward, there's more to come. There's no doubt about that from my stance. And this has been. It's taken work. It's taken work because Leicester have been very difficult about fees, like over Maddison. You can understand Leicester owes the club holding the contract with the player under contract. It would be as difficult as they would like. So you know, it takes a steady negotiation, and it takes a willingness from everybody on our side to be determined to get that man, and we've done it again. And the more I see these stats, and the more I see the flashes of his work on various social media channels, I think in the long term, yes, we've probably paid a little bit of a young English player excess fee. But other than that, I think long term, I think we're going to work out that this isn't a bad signing at all.
Okay, Stu, I am having a few issues with the internet, so I'll leave the talking to you guys tonight. But yeah, Stu, what's your thoughts on the Barnes arrival?
I think he's a great signing, and I've made it clear for a long time that I was a big fan of Maddison's signing. But the more, as Mitch just mentioned there about his stats and things like that, the more you see what Harvey Barnes has achieved and what he could achieve with this team, the more I think he's a better fit than what Maddison would have been. And the fact that he's 25, irrespective of what nationality he is, because if his name was Harvey Barnes and he played for a Liverpool or a Man United or an Arsenal or someone like that, we would be paying 70 million plus for him. So I think it's a shrewd piece of business. It's an astute piece of business. And we're not just buying potential, we're buying someone for the here and now. He's tried and tested at the highest level. He's there where even in a relegated team, he's put in the assists, he's put in the goals, and it makes you excited in anticipation of what he can achieve with us. And I suppose we better touch on who most of the people, and this is sad, who see that he's replacing in the squad. And it's not sad because I think everyone, even those who have been critical of Valentin Maximin, wanted him to succeed, wanted him to fulfill his ability, not his potential, because he's shown flashes of that, but actually deliver on a regular basis. That's where he let himself down. He's let us down, and hopefully he gets a platform where he can go and express himself better rather than being in a regime. But I think a lot of our fans are suffering from what I'm now going to call CSS syndrome, which means clean slate syndrome. Because when Eddie Howe came in, he offered everyone a clean slate. And given the fact that ASM had carte blanche under Bruce, he seemed to give the impression that he felt that he shouldn't have to prove himself again. But those who did prove themselves blossomed. And in that category, you can have Joe Linton, J7, whatever you want to call him, Sean Longstaff, Miggy, Shaw, Murphy. All of them have excelled and developed and grasp the chance that was given to them. Unfortunately for us, the one that was the most talented didn't. And figures alone, facts and stats alone, Barnes is an upgrade. And if we're getting somewhere near the same sort of fee, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on, about why the fee's being debated, then we are the winners. And when I say we, I mean us as Newcastle United fans, because that replicates itself on the pitch. We'll score more goals, and more goals wins more games, and more games won puts us in a better position than we've just finished.
Okay, yeah, Harvey Barnes' interview was pretty good. I'm not sure whether you've had a chance to see it, Mitch, but great interview. And yeah, he's looking forward to getting down to business. You were on mute, Mitch.
I haven't had a chance to catch up with that quite yet, but I'm sure he's seeing all the right things in all the right ways. I think so many young players are quite media savvy now and then how to respond to something like that. I think what we're seeing now is that we are able to do business without too much getting out still. However, I think given what touched on ESM, we're seeing that the Premier League are in a position to throttle the left, right and centre. And I think this is something we need to talk about. I think it's something we need to express. The front shirt deal with Salah was approved on the nod by the Premier League, but then had to go through the due process to be approved officially to ratify the figures. What was the knock-on effect of that? Well, basically, that Castoria didn't have enough stock to supply the club with for opening day of the shirt sales. Because they'd probably been told, look, we've been given this on the nod, go ahead and produce X amount, but you can't produce any more just in case it goes sour down the line. Where else is that throttling? Well, the shirt front sponsorship is your benchmark for all of the sponsorships. The only one we don't need to talk about is the shirt sleeve one. And to answer Barry's question before, no, Noon have not got their stock of shirts yet of any kind, home, away, or third. That's still all throttled and probably tied in with this. That you can't announce a training shirt, ground sponsor, tractor partner, gardening implement partner, or any kind that you wish until you've got your shirt front one, which is the benchmark that everybody does everything else off. And the longer the Premier League took to sign that off, the longer we were being throttled. And then we'll come to the ESM transfer. This was always going to be something that was going to happen with one of our players. That one of our players would end up being subject to a bid of one of the clubs in Saudi that's backed by PIF. And so once somebody like Ornstein bleats about it, then people start to take notice. Yes, it's ironic that some of the clubs objecting are ones benefiting from transfers, like, for example, Henderson and Fabinho, provided his dogs are allowed to go to Saudi, which he wouldn't be. If that transfer hangs in the balance over the dog will not be allowed in Saudi. I know that from my ex-missus, was involved with animal rescue over here. I know what breeds of dogs are allowed into the Middle East, and I know which ones aren't. Dealt with that a long time. I could tell you a terrible story about two staffies who were left abandoned in the middle of the desert and they're not claimed, but I won't because it still breaks my bloody heart. But that's another matter. This whole thing with people objecting to ESM's transfer and the value, and is it the right value? Most of them are benefiting from all sorts of transfers. Why isn't anybody bleating about Neves going? And at least Neves was honest about his transfer and said, look, my family's the biggest cup I can ever win. I want to support them. You know, you disrespect that. That's fantastic. That's being honest. And so we were always going to be subject to that extra level of scrutiny. Richard Masters opens his mouth, and sometimes when he does that, it doesn't help. He refers to the transfer isn't through yet, but we're looking at it, and we introduced these rules in 2021. Well, I'll tell you what's happened since they introduced those rules in 2021. The trisomy owners of the family that owns Udinese, Watford and Granada have done 60 transfers between those three clubs since those rules were brought in. So the rules must have a great degree of bending them, surely. Because it was interesting that that was one of the sets of clubs that wasn't mentioned in the set of people that were sanctioned by the Premier League for doing not straightforward transfers between those clubs. And I have to say, we're at a point where our owners must be close to speaking out on this and saying, hey, this is hypocrisy on a mass level. You're quite happy to accept money from the Saudi League to take your deadwood, take the people that are difficult to shift. Tellez from Man U, who was never going to play another game for them unless there was like a dearth of fullbacks along the lines of a zombie plague, and the French centre back, who was nowhere near their first team plans. And now we're talking 20 million for him.
Really?
Nah. Yeah, it's Bailey, yes, and it's bullshit. It's utter bullshit. And how our owners, be that the minority share owners or the big guy himself, where His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan wants to speak out about this, it's quite clear we are subject to different settings. It is quite clear that we will be put under a bigger microscope, and it's quite clear that it's throttling our development very deliberately and very concertedly. And the time will come to push back. And I'm telling you right now, I would love to see who's hidden in that Delaware company that owns Crystal Palace. If it's a you know a Kuwaiti prince or you know or a Qatari royal or somebody like that, they're going to have massive eggs on their faces. And they still look at money from the Middle East as the big bad, the monster under the bed, and yet more and more US money creeps into the game. That pounds into the US with the series we're involved with right now. And they're quite happy to let US influence come into the game, not just at the top flight, but at all levels, and disrupt it. I know it's a great thing on Netflix and Amazon and shit like that with what's happening with Wrexham, but what's happening with Wrexham is totally disruptive to lower league, to the point where somebody like Newport Supporters Trust, who owned their club for a while, have turned around and said, we can't do this anymore, we want out. And that for me is the death of fan ownership. And that's come from the States. That's what come from the Middle East. And that's why, for me, the clear and present danger remains money coming from the US, but it's doing it in more subtle and insidious ways, via trust funds, via companies like MSI, who loan clubs money, and then when they default on the loan, they'll take possession of that club and they'll get a club on the cheap. You just wait for it. The loan money to Sunderland, and wait for Sunderland, we're going to do it. Sunderland will look at that they got killed. Who isn't actually blameless from dealing with the Middle East because who bailed out his main company, obviously, UAE. Anyway, you know, and so people you can choose your God, your devil, and your despot. It's up to you. What do you want? But either way, what's going on at the moment, in terms of our club and our ownership, is nothing short of another competition issue, and I can see Keith getting his pen out of the game.
Okay, Stu, what's your views on this?
Well, if you thought that was a long one, here we go.
Yeah.
Something that Mitch said there about the way it's been put across, but I can see Amanda, obviously I can't see Amanda, but I can imagine Amanda sitting with Masters having to answer these questions, and and the just trumped up bull, for want of a better phrase. And I can imagine I getting a mobile out, showing Nick DeMarco's number. Shall I ring it? Shall I press it? Shall I press it? Because he would have a field day for free, and on what these charges are. But just to give a bit substance to the statement and a bit of background, it come from someone who has in the past been a respected journalist, especially when it comes to transfers, and that's Ormstein, is David Ormstein, who works for The Athletic. Now, let's take things. When The Athletic first come on the scene in the UK, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was new writing, new agendas, this, that, and the other. But now, last year, the New York Times company purchased The Athletic. That was last year. And as of this month, as in July 2023, The Athletic is now the sports arm of the New York Times. So they got rid of all the other sports journalists and made it The Athletic. So what that means is that The Athletic have to appease their paymasters, who are American. The New York Times are one of the first ones that broke the news and are very, very vociferous against PIF relating to the golf. I know someone mentioned the golf before that an American won. How dare he? Yeah. So the PIF owned LIV. Now I've got a question. LIV Golf. Do you know why it's called that, Steve?
No, go on.
Right, because people say, "Oh, live sounds like give golf." LIV are Roman numerals for 54. Okay, 54 is the number of holes that they play in the new live course. Instead of playing 4 rounds of 18 as they do traditionally, they play 3 rounds of 18, and that's where the 54 LIV comes from, to show it was a new radical way of playing golf. So that's what research does for you, just a little bit. Now, some journalists could do the same. That's why it's called Live Golf or LIV Golf. Now, they're trying to, the people at The Athletic, and it's understandable without getting too critical, it's understandable. Someone's paying you wages, you do what you can to make them happy. It's life, you know, whether you agree with them or not. But in my way, it goes a long way to explain the recent anti-Newcastle rhetoric that's come out of The Athletic. And it has cranked up over the last 5 to 6 weeks. And it's simply that they're trying to curry favour with the bosses. Look, I'm more important. Look, I'll slag Newcastle off because they're related to PIF. And unfortunately for us, we end up taking the brunt of a lot of the anti-Saudi criticism that goes there. Now, what he wrote, and it was very ambiguous, it was very open. He said some clubs, or a number of clubs. A number of clubs will voice concern, or could voice concern. There was no names of the clubs. There was no definite, this is who's doing it, they are going to do it. It was all left to the imagination to gaslight the fan base. Now, thankfully, Twitter isn't a true reflection on the Newcastle United fan base, but some people were going way over the top. Oh, that's it, we're not going to get this, we're going to get closed down, we're going to have to sell the club. What, because a journalist is trying to keep his job or push himself further up the queue of horse kissing and others? I don't agree with that. Now, if any 2 clubs were going to do it, now I say 2 because 2 is a number, and the 2 have been most vociferous against Newcastle United have been Tottenham and Liverpool. Right? So, this is what I got written down. We're talking about Tottenham. Tottenham, the same Tottenham who bid £38 million for Alan St. Maximin last summer. Fact. So they're now saying £30 million isn't enough for a player because the transfer didn't go through. So Tottenham now decide they run the league. I don't think that's the case. Tottenham, who twerked incessantly for a PIF takeover, and because, believe it or not, this is the funny part, they overpriced themselves. That's why PIF do not own Tottenham now. Had they give a fair value, I think they might have bought Tottenham before they bought Newcastle United. But they took Tottenham, the PIF, thought they were stupid. Oh, you want a Premier League club? And they priced themselves out of the market with a daft figure. So that Tottenham. Also the Tottenham who I believe should be more concerned about why Mrs. Harry Kane is in Bavaria house hunting at the moment. get your own house in order before you start pointing the fingers at others. So if you want 3 words, or what's it called, the 3 words for Tottenham, my 3 words for Tottenham.
What 3 words?
Yeah, what 3 words are? Mind the gap. That's it. It's born out of jealousy. We've already overtaken them, and the gap's just going to get wider, and they know it. So if they are behind it, they'll get laughed at. Oh, look, Newcastle are buying players. They're selling players. They're selling the player that they didn't sell to us, and they're selling for £30 million for Alan St-Maximin is probably under market value. And this is where we are taking the hits because of what Mitch says, the scrutiny's on us that much, that we are undervaluing ourselves. Same as we did with Seller, the shirt sponsors. Same as we've done with Noon. Same as we've done with everything else that's happened. They've done it so there can be no contest from anyone to say that it's something underhand's happening. Everything's done above board. So, yes, he has started the 3. Yes, you did, Paul. You did start the 3 words. So that's the Tottenham. Now, as for Liverpool, where would I put the Liverpool? The Liverpool, here we go, who are busy losing 2 midfielders to Saudi. Yep, Henderson. Tell me £12 million for 34-year-old fair market value? No, it's not. He was going for free, and they were going to give him that as a thank you free service. Now it's say, oh, we want some money, because with amortization, that £12 million will release more money for them to spend. Then they've got Fabinho. Tell me anyone with more than 2 brain cells in their head that he is worth £40 million. Fabinho is not worth £40 million. So there's another inflated price. So they're taking advantage of the Saudi market. Also, they lost, they didn't. Firmino left, who's now at Saudi, now playing for a Saudi club. Same one as that Alan St-Maximin's going to. Then we had the huge hypocrisy of Jamie Carragher 1 month ago. Saudi Arabia should be banned from buying players. Why? Well, because they bought a few Chelsea players, because they tried to improve the league. Why are they not allowed to improve the league? Should they just have to sit and wait the turn and wait for like 3 or 4 decades, 5 decades? They want them to wait to improve their league for 5 decades, but they won't let them improve the human rights that they keep banging on about. Well, they've improved that dramatically over the last decade, so why aren't they allowed to improve the football over the last decade? So, July 2023, the same Jamie Carragher, once his best mate, Gerrard becomes a manager, and then his Liverpool captain, Henderson, looks like he's going there to take crazy money. All of a sudden, that's okay. It's understandable that. I'm not even going to try and do a Scouse accent. I'm too angry. It's understandable that it's for money, because Gerrard's got no money and neither's Henderson. They're not multi-millionaires already. So it helps the generation. So it's okay for the Liverpool players to take the money and Liverpool to benefit from it. Chelsea can benefit from it. Man United can benefit from it. Man City can benefit from it, but Newcastle can't, for a player that's in his prime and, in my opinion, underpriced. It just shows, man, they're that scared, and that's all it is. And they keep banging the drum saying how scared it is. Even Richard Masters, yesterday, he was asked the question, and I know we talked about it, has he replied? So Mitch pointed out where he replied. He answered the question. Basically what he said is there's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. They've paid the price, and that's acceptable. Now, had it been £80 million, question it, no problem. £30 million for someone that was bid for 38 million last season, no problem. The real question that should be asked are, why are clubs allowed to charge a Newcastle tax? How can Leicester tell us 48 million for Maddison and then sell them for 40? They tried the same with Bonds, not the same figures, priced up. Southampton have tried it. Man United tried it with Lingard and the loan deal. So the more we do with the things correctly, the more they do it with the dignity, there will be some kickback eventually. And we've got the right people with the right lawyers, shall we say, if we look at Nick DeMarco and it's all, we've got the right people to support us. And if we do everything right, the good will always win in the end. So let them cry on, and it just makes fools of them. They're making fools of themselves now by complaining about what Newcastle are doing with their transfer budget.
But equally as well, the Premier League tied themselves in knots when they were making out that the biggest issue they had was with separation, when in reality the undercurrent was the biggest issues they were worried about was piracy and the competition case. So they tied themselves in knots with it, and now they cannot put it in reverse and back it up, because now they're starting to talk about different things and saying, "Oh well, we've got these robust things that were put in place in 2021." I didn't stop the family that owns Udinese and what's that doing bloody 50 transfers between the 3 clubs they own, and you've not even stepped in with one of them. And
how
so,
have Tottenham, what's their debt? Tottenham's current debt, do you know?
it's nearly $1 billion, mate. It's about 950 million at the minute. And the biggest problem they've got is that there's a chunk of that debt becomes a higher interest bearing debt this year, and they don't have the Champions League money to cover it. And so I genuinely believe they have to sell any asset that they have that is saleable to cover the debt. And that's why what's his face is missing his house hunting in Bavaria at the moment.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, Kane is only their biggest saleable asset with 1 year left on his contract. But going abroad, I think they'll only get 80 million for it, which is still a big amount of money. But the Premier League will sign that off in a heartbeat, because it isn't, it isn't us in Saudi. And this is the issue. And I would like to see a lot more kickback now, because it's enough's enough. I think there's a club I would like to see somebody from our ownership group starting to, even if they're not asking direct questions, put some hypotheticals out there that just ruffle feathers, because it's enough's enough. You talk about the Athletic, we've got 2 great journalists at the Athletic. And yet on so many things, for me, they're mute. They'd rather go on a podcast and talk about sausages and steak bakes and shit like that than actually do something that kicks back against the people that seem ready and lined up to attack us left, right and centre. And we need that kind of help. We need to be starting to defending what corner and rallying the yeah, true, to be fair. I can see that myself. I should be happy with retaining the ashes. We should be getting the wagons around and starting to work together. And I don't see any of that. And yet people who went to the Athletic were telling us, oh, well, if I go to the Athletic and I leave this job, we've got a lot more journalistic ability to do what we want. That's what one of the lines that certainly both of ours said publicly. But at the same time, they don't seem to be doing that. Like I say, everybody seems far more happy to talk about sausages on a podcast. And that pisses me off immensely. When can we start to defend ourselves as a club and get people who are involved or who are allies involved in defending us now? The takeover's long gone. Nobody's going to stop anything or turn anything around now. No matter what Tariq Panya writes, it's not happening. The next thing is, why are we subject to additional scrutiny over player transfers when almost the entire Premier League is benefiting from money from Saudi Arabia?
But who says we are, Mitch? That's my point. Who says we are? It's been suggested mischievously.
That's right. Mischievously, yes, but I genuinely believe we are. The delay in my shirt front sponsor, not the agreement that the seller could do it, but then they retain the right to re-look at the figures and say, no, we don't think that's worth 25 million, we think it's worth 15. And that was what confused a lot of people. Later on, when they're saying, oh, hang on a minute, I thought this was agreed. What do you mean it's just been approved? Well, what it's been approved is it's been approved in full. They've agreed the figures. They have the ability, right at the last minute, to turn around and say, your figures are shit, this is the figures we think is applicable. And you can't start to do anything like other type of sponsorship, training shirt, ground, whatever you, until you've got that main shirt front sponsor working, because that's the benchmark of that all other sponsorships are working around. Particularly whilst the Man City case sits and rumbles on, because what you don't want is to fall foul of anything that might come out of that. And we're guessing at that because they still haven't sorted that out. And we're guessing at the Everton one because that's been referred to a commission. Yes, Usmanov's direct link companies were taken out of the equation for Everton. And Everton worked with the Premier League. But then eventually it got to the point where the Premier League couldn't work with them anymore because it was such a tangled web. Everything that Mashori does is, in a business world, as you and I know, with business connections, how they work over here, I've got absolutely no doubt everything that Mashori does is not has a finger in the pie of. But it's then unscrambling and unworking all of those connections out that makes it difficult for anybody to do any adjudication on Everton's FFP, because what they've done is they've cleared the obvious ones out of the way. Took his name off of the ground side, took his name off the training shirt, took his name away from the ladies' team connection and all of that. But we know fine well that's a more tangled web than anybody would want to believe, just because of the Iranian business connections that we know, for God's sakes. You know, it's like how tangled they are. And so we are still, in many ways, walking across the lake on the lily pads because we don't know when one might give way underneath it. We're guessing because they're still dragging their heels over the Man City, they're still dragging their heels over Everton. They still don't obviously have faith in their own rules to apply these things to independent commissions. If these are your rules and this is what you set out and you want to adjudicate on it, why are you giving it to an independent commission? It's because you don't have the balls and you don't have the faith in your own set of rules. And it might come a time where somebody, and the two obvious somebodies will be Man City and us because of who owns them. Somebody turns around and says, "Sod this, I'm driving a coach and horses through your FFP, and what are you going to do about it?" Because until somebody makes a ruling that actually has some sort of actual effect and factual impact on someone, you might as well turn and say, "Well, fine as much as you like. It's my money, I'm going to do what the hell I want with it." And where we heard this time and time again, there's businessmen in this part of the world. It's my money and I'm going to spend it how I want. Thank you very much. See you. And so there's a lot more things potentially could happen. But yeah, as long as the punishment's a totally fine, it's not even a slap on the wrist, it's a tickle of a feather on your arse, then it's irrelevant. It needs to have impact. And yet we're having to play the game and smile, you know, and shake hands while we know fine well the amount of people who shake their hand, they've got a stiletto hidden in another hand behind their back. And they're quite happy to stick it in my bloody guts if they get the chance. And it's so frustrating. And it'll come eventually a time where somebody may just say, "Well, fuck a lot of this, I'm going to do what I want." And I wouldn't blame them.
No, the reason I was asking, asked the question about the Tottenham debt, the Man United debt, the Liverpool debt, Newcastle have no debt. So it's okay for these teams to have debt as long as it's, if I understand it correctly, by the owner and it's serviceable.
Managed.
Yeah, and it's serviceable. So when you're talking about we're getting trampled on, trust me, I've worked with enough very wealthy, connected Saudi business people who I know for a fact will sit and smile, okay, keep nodding, you think I'm stupid, and then wallop. Here we go. What's to stop them giving Newcastle, through financial fair play, a £1 billion loan? And you can pay us back over a stupid amount of time. So you want to pay your debts? We'll give you a debt. It's our debt. Is it manageable? Can a company worth $1.4 trillion? Can a company worth $1.4 trillion manage that debt? Me think so. And this is what's getting them all running scared, Mitch. They're trying to get they're just trying to get little digs in and run away before the big monster comes to get them. And whether they like it or not, it's happening. And it's from Tottenham and Liverpool's perspective, it's born from jealousy. It's been very interesting through this. There's 3 teams that haven't really went against us. Quite obviously, Man City being one of them. But Chelsea have been one, as have Arsenal. You know, and I don't think Arsenal have really said anything bad about us. The manager has, about the fact that they couldn't beat us at their place. But as a club, they haven't come out and said it's disgraceful, it's this, that, and the other. So it's the way of the world now. And as long as
they kind of say nothing about fair value. You've just paid 100 million for Rice and sold Havertz for 65.
Yeah. Well, for what they've paid for Rice, we've got Bruno, Tonali, and Change. So who's had the best deal? And we talked about it last week. It's not spend the money; it's how you spend the money, and where spend it. And I think as Steve Hasty there saying, it's been designed by Bean Counters. It's been designed by people who were employed by people to make sure that they stayed at the top, and the potential threat from those below was minimal. Now that's why it was put in place. They can come across and say, so basically, if you read between the lines, we don't want to be challenged. We're making more money than you, and we're going to make it difficult for anyone to make as much money as us. So if we play by the rules, like it's like a game of Monopoly, the one with the most money normally wins. Well, sometimes that doesn't happen. And sometimes it's the one who sells the properties at the right time and buys the properties at the right time, actually, and understands the rules, wins the games. So if they want an open market, they want a fair market, they have to understand that Newcastle are there and they're not going away. And the more they push us, the better it is for us, because the more determined it will make the owners to win, the more togetherness. It showed from the interview yesterday with Jamaal Lascelles and Eddie Howe. The more togetherness the players become, the more sense of achievement they have when they actually do create. They're creating something. And the siege mentality is being created for us. That's something that Alex Ferguson had to manipulate the media for, to create, to get Manchester United to be as successful as they were. These are doing it for us. That squad of players that we got that finished 4th last season should not have finished 4th. End of story. Yeah. But they did. So, and they've now got belief. They've now got confidence. They know they can do it. And we've now improved. We've got the most expensive Italian. Doesn't make him the best Italian, but he's one of the best midfielders from Italy. We've got him, add him to our squad. He's an upgrade on the person he's replacing. We've got Harvey Barnes in, who's an upgrade on who he's replacing. Did anyone think there's no more signings coming? Absolutely there is. So when you have people like who write for The Athletic, some of them will go out of their way to poke the bear with us and just be really rude and obnoxious. Some will be more subtle with it, like what happened yesterday. Some will be suggestive with it. Then you have other people that are saying, we've only got 75 million to spend. Well, I think we've spent 100 already, and we're not finished. So the club can do what they want. And when we get round to, I see Steve showing his better side now anyway, but when we get round to talking about the implications of financial fair play, do you know what that reminds me of, Mitch? We're sitting in the bar and that NUFC signs an ashtray and we're just chatting away. Right. Of course, we're not something like that. So
you just mentioned financial fair play. I'm keeping my picture off, lads, because my internet's terrible tonight. So it's better me just being like this, and at least you can hear us. But Bill Burnett was wanting us to discuss financial fair play. Can you just give us an abridged version of it, Mitch, Stu? The money in, money out situation, because we don't need financial experts on here. We just need people who know what they're talking about, which is you two guys on a Sunday. Just explain the whole situation. How does it work in essence?
I'll start by passing it on to Mitch, who will understand the finance of it more, as in how it works numerically. But then what I'll do is explain the financial position that we're in, incomings and outgoings, and how we're in a better position than we've ever been. So it'll be because we talked about this a bit earlier. So yes, the financial fair play is set to hamper us. When people say it hampers us, the club have played it brilliantly. They're playing the poor person, poor relation, and they can't get what they want, etc. But when it hasn't hampered us, it's hampered us buying who we could buy financially. But that doesn't fit into the plan they've got or with the manager they've got. because you can come in and buy 8 top players. Doesn't mean 8 top players will play together. And there's been perfect examples of that in this league for years and years and years. So the way they're doing it's right. What they're doing is the slight restrictions where, right, we could get 2 more quality players. We may have to look a bit further down the list for now. But how financial fair play works, it's coming now.
it has two strands to it. One's about debt and being able to service your debt, which we've already touched on. And that's how clubs like Tottenham and Man U can get away with having huge debt. Man U in the way that the Glazers bought the club by leveraging debt against the wealth and income of a globally wealthy football club, and the way that Levy at Tottenham has done it by building commercial income over a time, and then leveraging against income generated against things like being able to host the NFL games in Europe and diversifying the way they have income coming into the club. The other aspect to it, as Penny rightly points out there, is about not spending more than you earn and living within your means, which we did very well underneath Ashley, and that's why we have no debt. However, the lack of the expansion on the commercial side hinders us in terms of what we can do beyond that. But players in and out becomes a bit more complicated, because effectively, when you sell a player, that money goes back into the club as a big lump, but you can then spend it out by amortizing the amount that you spend on a player over the period of their contract. That's why Chelsea have been given 7 and 8 year contracts out to people, because it dilutes how that impacts their spending power. Because what you can say is, right, this is £70 million, but it's a 7-year contract, so that's 10 million a year. So only 10 million a year.
5 maximum, isn't it? It's been reduced to 5 maximum. They can give 8-year contracts out, but the amortization can only be for 5 years. Yeah,
and so when you come to try and do that, it means when you get a lump sum in for a player, that may be let you buy 3 or 4 players of a similar value, because everything's being amortized and watered down year on year against the spending power of the club. I think the other thing that hinders us is there are ways to pump money into the club legally, which I'm quite sure PIF would like to do, but because they're only 80% shareholders, it means that the Roon brothers and Amanda and Merdad have to match that in their relevant percentages. And I think that's why there was discussion a little while ago about, will we see a change in the ownership structure over time? Because I'm quite sure PIF would like to take advantage of the ability to pump money in the club the way Chelsea did, for example. And so that's another complication, which does it hinder? Yeah, I guess in a way it kind of does, but I think they'll find work. They'll find inventive ways around that. I've got no idea, no doubt about that. And I think we'll find inventive ways around some of the little hurdles we have at the moment. Is that currently throttling what we are able to do in the transfer market? Possibly, yes. But I think the biggest throttle on that is people just dragging their heels in the background to ratify certain things and listening to people that they shouldn't listen to, and so I think that's why I think eventually the time will come with our ownership, if we carry on the way we are, where they'll just get frustrated enough to start to say, right, hey, can I tolerate this? What's going on? I would like to see a little bit of feedback, personally.
Okay, there's a question coming from Roger. He says, question, Mitch and Stu, how does amortization affect following windows?
Well, I can answer this one. This is twofold, because you've got to have a serviceable debt, as Mitch said. It's 105 million, Mitch, isn't it, over 3 years, a deficit. Now, we're over that because of what they've had to do. So then you can blame Mike Ashley or you can thank Mike Ashley, because it gives us a blank canvas to start bringing in new sponsors. And in fear of repeating myself, I really don't think our owners should be underestimated of how business savvy they are. They will announce what's needed when it's needed. All right, we need to. And there, it's something that can get us with, if, for example, we're over the limit, but that's where a serviceable debt can be added. A loan could be brought in to cover that. So that there's plenty of ways around it, and there'll be accountants that come in. So to go on with what I was going to mention there, to take on what Mitch has said is about figures. There's a lot of scourmongering, I suppose is a proper phrase for it, where people are happy to put fear in the fan base, because what we have in general is a united camp, a happy camp, a focused camp, and one that is on the ascendancy, the one that is united, and they are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So they'll try through different ways of the media to manipulate or to destabilise the happiness and the growth of Newcastle United. But let's put some facts and figures towards the viewers. This year alone, let's just say St. Maximin has been sold. The sale of St. Maximin, the sale of Chris Wood, the sale of John Joe Shelby has brought in more than £50 million, irrespective if that's spread over 2, 3 or 4 years. I understand that the St. Maximin money would be a lump sum anyway, which helps us greatly with amortization, because that's a lump sum straight up front. That also saved the club £10 million minimum in wages per year. Just those three alone. For Champions League qualification, which wasn't thought of, 30 million quid. Where we finished 4th in the Premier League, 38 million quid. Players out of contract, Matty Longstaff, Kieran Clark, that saved us £1.5 million quid per year. TV money, because we were on that many times, and where we finished in the league, £160 million. Seller, Noon, Fun 88, all renewing in different guises, minimum £35 million. And that's without the Seller Cup, without Visit Malta, without all the extras that have been brought into it, without, okay, can we build you a nice fan zone and sponsor that as well? Because who do you think is going to be sponsoring the fan zone? Who do you think is going to be organising it? That'll be a separate income to Newcastle United. So those are the incomes that are coming. Plus, we've got stadium revenue, season tickets, the food and beverages, advertising hoardings, corporates. That in it alone is going to be at least 40 to 50 million pound. Shirt sales, I don't know how much we're getting from shirt sales, but I can guarantee there's a lot more shirts being sold now than there was under Mike Ashley. The cup run, we might not go, but got extra for that money-wise, but exposure nationally and globally, that generates more money. So then we'll go on to future earnings, potential sponsors, stadium sponsor, 30 million a season, no problem. Champions League team, why wouldn't it be? Then training gear, notice it's still blank. 5 million a year for that, well within the realms of realistic sponsorship if we compare ourselves to the people who were in the same positions as us league-wise and some below us. Training ground, why not 10 million a year for naming a training ground? Other teams do it and other teams get it. Teams that have just been relegated have a King Power, I believe, training stadium. Then we have things like that. I know Mitch has mentioned there's quite a few of his travel partners. There's loads of little things. I know he jokes about tractors and stuff like that, but there's so many ways that could generate another 5 million. So those potential sponsors could bring another 50 million pound minimum a season in. And what's the worst, if you look at the big owners in the squad that won't be part of the first team next season, that's your Frasers, your Hendricks, your Krath, and Darlow, Hayden. Some of these will be gone. Some of them are injured, so we can't get shot of them. And some are too stubborn that we might have to stick with them for now. Not in the squad, but on the payroll. That's another 12 to 15 million pound a year we'll save once they've gone. So this is where it becomes important. That 12 million pound saved could allow us to buy a 30 million pound player for over 5 years and pay him 120 grand a week. Kieran Tierney, anyone? That's how simple it is. So we can adjust figures. We've got the best bean counters, as Mr. Hasty referred them to, in the world, looking at how we can not bend the rules. These are your rules, okay? So these are our limitations. How can we maximize our potential and our benefits from that? And they'll find ways, because other clubs have. And if they want to restrict us and they start changing how they do it, okay, we'll copy you. We'll do it your way, but we'll do it better. So please, the 3 words I used last week was cool your jets and trust the process. That's the 2 phrases. We need to keep doing that. We have people in place. And I know I said to you, Steve, and I said to you, Mitch, when we talked about today's show, I'm really concerned. I know I'm glad that Twitter isn't a reflection of the fan base as a whole, because I've got some really good friends who support Newcastle and do it entertain Twitter, and they have a lot more realistic outlook on it. But it reminds me sometimes of a newborn baby that just cries, then wah, wah. And then what do you have to do with that baby? You've got to feed it. And you feed the baby with a transfer or with a sponsor, and it placates the baby for a while. And then a little bit later, it starts again. We're becoming needy. Or some are sounding needy, some are sounding desperate. And it's a bad look. If we finish 6th next season, that's still higher than most people thought would finish anyway. And I'll go back to the thing that me and the Heat had a conversation with about a month ago, when he asked how much do you think we'd spend. Now, as much as I'll praise the owners and as much as I'll tell you how clever they are, if we had finished 8th or 9th last season, they would have realised they need to spend money. You can't stand still in this league and expect to improve. So finish 8th or 9th, they would have spent money to get. It's the only way you can get into the European places. And once they achieve that, you would have to spend again to get into Champions League places. Guess what? We've just jumped 2 steps. So they know that people below us will spend money. And we can box clever. And they can do things that other people are prompting us not to do. And they will do it if necessary. They will get pushed to the point and say, these are your rules. And as Mitch did before, 2 fingers go up. We're playing by your rules now. We've been nice, and what you're doing is taking the piss out of us now. So we're not going to sit back. We're here, and we're not going away. Accept it, or we'll beat you at your own rules. So if they were going to spend 70, 80 million pound by finishing 8th or 9th, add those figures I've just talked about, the league position, the Champions League place, and that's just for the first 6 games. Then you take into consideration the extra TV money. Then you get taken into consideration the St. Maximin money, the Shelby money alone. That's 50 million. Amortize that over 5 years, that's 250 million. Let's just say the players' salaries are 10 million each. That still gives us 180 million to spend on 2 players alone. We've got more money to spend. Just relax. They'll spend it on the right players if they feel like the pants aren't getting taken down. Which then takes us on to Livermore, if that's just how you pronounce it. I've seen people saying we shouldn't sign him. The guy's an exciting talent and will eventually replace Kieran Trippier. But a successful Newcastle United will play 50-plus games next season. Already we'll play 38 in the league, 6 in the Champions League, so there's 44. And if we get knocked out the first round of each cup, there's 46 games. I fancy us to progress in at least 1 or 2 of those competitions, so there's your 50 games. Kieran Trippier had a full season last year, and then he's getting England games on top. He's not going to play over 50 games for us this season. So therefore, if he says he's going to play 30 games, 30 to 35 games, Livermore, let's call him the Southampton fullback because that's what he is at the moment. If he came in and was an understudy to him and learned from him to be the natural heir to the throne, shall we say, he's going to play 15 to 20 games in the Champions League team. That's why he's excited by it. He's excited by learning by. So it's not a bad signing, but it's a bad signing if they sign him and they don't sign the left back, a top quality left back, because they used all the budget. But they haven't used all the budget. We've just give 10, 15 minutes of reasons why the budget, the cupboards aren't there. People want the cupboards to be bare, so we'll tell them the cupboards are bare, and then we'll spend the money. I assure you, we will spend more money this transfer window, even after the Harvey Barnes money goes through. And it's fact, because the owners know it, the manager knows it, but it'll be to the right player. And I just keep saying 2 words, Kieran Tierney. I really hope we get him, because he will suit the system better than any other left back I've looked at. So that's my little rant, and hopefully that's covered a bit of financial fair play as well.
Yeah, great stuff, lads. That's why people tune in to the professionals. Let's go down the football route. We've done a lot on the finances tonight, and John Ball came in earlier with a question for us. He says, "Evening, lads. Do you think it's a good move keeping Lascelles and also him remaining captain?" The interview today, Mitch, was fascinating. We saw Eddie Howe jump in at the end of the Lascelles press conference and wax lyrical as he's done before, but this time in front of Lascelles, giving him massive praise. It was great to see. It really was. It left a lump in my throat, I've got to be honest, and showed what this club is all about, certainly from the team level.
And I made a comment. This is exactly what we saw when we were in Riyadh with them. When the fans got together with the owners and the management and playing staff, Lascelles was put up as one of the players there, and it was quite clear, for all he wasn't playing, she was still the club captain and spoke like a captain and had the backing of everybody at the club. I think he spoke eloquently and explained the situation very well, that we have this leadership group that he is part of, and that for then Eddie to step in at the end, and I think that was super important for him to do that. That shows what's going on off the pitch. And this is synergy. This makes us greater than the sum of the parts. At the end of the day, we are far greater than the sum of the parts. Why? Because of that togetherness off the pitch. He's my club captain. He got booked twice last year for shit he did on the touchline, trying to get the win on the pitch. You can't knock that. I saw some people disappointed saying, "Oh well, that's another centre back out the window." Yeah, but if you know what, we need to trust Eddie, and if Eddie says this is my captain and he's going to be involved and he will play some games next season, then he gets what he needs, and we should get somebody keen to impress when he takes the pitch. The fact that nobody's hesitated, even for a second, to not hand the armband across to him when he has come on as a sub, that's huge. That shows about what's happening in our dressing room. And what's happening in our dressing room is projecting us forward to the levels we are at quicker than what just bringing people in and doing the normal stuff is. We have a genuine togetherness across the board, and this is exactly why I have no worries about him being nominated captain, because actually when we take the pitch, we've got more than one captain on the pitch anyway. We have leaders all over the pitch in different ways, and so I don't have a problem with that, not at all, personally. And I'm delighted that Eddie stepped in and said what he did as well.
Yeah, what about you, Stu?
Yeah, Lascelles, I just think I've been probably one of his biggest supporters over the last, since Eddie Howe come in. The way he's been professional and accepted that he's not going to start in a progressive team. But when he has come in, and I've said this before, since he hasn't been starting regularly, when he has come in, he's been foot perfect. He's been faultless. Look how he handled Holland at Man City. And he is a big part of the team, as Mitch referred to there when we were in Riyadh. The respect he was shown, and it wasn't out of fear, it was genuine respect. The man is a leader amongst men. And yes, I think personally, deep down, it hurts him that he's not starting every week. But if he wasn't a professional footballer and he didn't feel hurt by that, then he's not doing his job properly. But he does understand that he's capable of coming in and playing his role, not just in the team, the squad. Now, he's been through the thin and thinner with us. as in the relegations. He's been through the Steve Bruce times. Why shouldn't he get a bit of slice of glory, even just a little bit? Because I reckon, and I can't be proved wrong with this because it hasn't happened, it didn't happen. Had we won that cup final, had we'd been 2-0 up, he would have been on with a few minutes to go, and Trippier would have stood behind him and shoved him up them stairs to collect the trophy.
Yeah, would have. Yeah.
And that's the unity this club's got, and he deserves more than most. He's one that stood up against the players.
Stood in the dressing room, didn't he? And give all the senior pros an absolute hammer, didn't he?
When he was at Bayern, we had that debacle down at Southampton.
Yeah.
And he went late on Jan Matt and a couple of others and punched the dressing room wall, apparently. This is where this comes from. He was a leader as a young man.
He deserves it. He deserves
absolutely.
To be He deserves to be leading us out in the Champions League game, whether it's we've already qualified, make him captain, whether it's we're already knocked out, make him captain and bring him on. He needs to be on that pitch, and he deserves that on his CV. And maybe we're being sentimental, but the thing that's got us to where we are is the togetherness, is the team squad, is the team spirit. And he's been a huge part of that. And going on to before, Mitch, when we're talking about not PIF, the financial fair play, there was 4 numbers I wanted to give you that I know will resonate with you straight away. And that's 2030, 2030. That is where our club's aiming for. We are ahead of schedule. Our owners will not stop because we're ahead of schedule. Oh, we'll take our foot off the pedal now. We'll just relax. We'll go into cruise control for a couple of seasons. They want Newcastle United to be renowned worldwide and recognised as one of the biggest, best clubs, if not the best. The chairman said it himself, the best. First, number 1 in football, and it's all geared up to 2030. We've got 7 years to go. Why are Newcastle fans complaining about anything? We should be so grateful and so humble and so happy. This is our dream come true. This is now a reality. Enjoy it.
But that's also not to say that when the club gets shit wrong, we can't criticise, and we should criticise. We should be the club's most critical friend. We should be able to turn around and say, hey, this decision you've made about this, that's crap. Sort yourself out. And I think the two things aren't binary. It's not a yes, you can't enjoy it, but you can't criticise either. You can enjoy it and criticise, because we all want Newcastle United to be the absolute best it can be. So when I'm hearing whispers about what's going on with for example, my personal stance on this is, look, you as a club, obviously you know what you want to do, just fucking do it. And damn the torpedoes, just do it. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you think is the best thing for Newcastle United, and you know you're going to upset people, don't give lip service about consultation and shit like that. Just do it. Just do it. The pain will be a lot less than the long-term pain that will happen when certain things hit the fan and get out through the back door. Because then you find out that, well, this group did this, and this group said that, and this group lobbied on the basis of this. And people will get massively pissed when some of that gets out. Just do it. Just do it. If you've got an idea what you want to do it. I know the club's very, very, very driven to try and get overseas fans more involved and get more overseas fans. But the challenge with that is that will come at the expense of people who might be on waiting lists, people who might have given season tickets up and feel that they're entitled to something because they did that. Absolutely, Bill. Well-intentioned criticism is advice. Fair criticism where it's due. We should be in a position through people who tell us they are open-minded and want to listen, that we should be able to say, hey, hold on, this isn't great. What you've done here is not quite right. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. I'd just rather they just come out and did whatever they wanted to do and damn the torpedoes.
I see, there was a comment there from Vince that he said he agreed with you. And just to prove that we don't sit when we're together and kumbaya all the time and totally great. I have to tell you, I don't think this season's a free hit. I thought last season was the free hit because anything above where we finished was progression. Now this isn't a free hit. This now is where the pressure comes. This is where we have to deliver because we've got there. And if you want some stats, how many teams have got themselves at the top 4 and then not stayed in the top 6? The pressure is on us, but it's how we handle it, and I think we're handling it superbly. So, but also this season, and I replied to someone on Twitter who asked this question, this season has the potential to be the best season Newcastle United have ever had in our lifetime. In our lifetime. That's what we've got coming ahead of us the next 9-10 months. We could be sitting here in a year's time talking about winning a trophy or qualifying a game at the Champions League and being accepted. It's only because we're the new kids on the block. Once we're accepted, and because we're in the goldfish, we only see the criticism of Newcastle United. Believe me, Man City had it as well. But they rode through it. And they come out the other side. Yes, they had less stress and less hurdles put in their way. And maybe they have bent rules, maybe they haven't. But we will get there. And for absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, we will get there. And then they can call it the Oil Classico when we play them. They can call it whatever they want, because as long as you're Newcastle United, or they don't have to win silverware every season for me, just to be contesting in it and have a realistic chance, give us optimism, give us hope at the start of the season, like hope when we're in the second division. We used to go there at the start of every season hoping that we were going to get promoted, and then we'd get beat of Millwall the first game. Or we're in the old first division, oh, this is going to be our season, and Everton Wallet was 4 out. You know, it's finished. What we're doing now, you know, goes back to the skyscraper that's Mairdad referred to. The foundations are built, they're solid. We're only going one way. A skyscraper only goes up one way, and we are going that way. And we should just all sit back, enjoy it, take part of the ride. There'll be bumps along the road as there is in any road. We'll get beat sometimes when we shouldn't, but we've won sometimes when we shouldn't. And if everyone pulls the same way, this force that is Newcastle United is an unstoppable force. And this is where we need to stick together.
I think on the whole free hit thing there that people are talking about, I think you're sort of confusing a free hit against the feeling that teams in pots 1, 2, and 3 will look at pot 4 and say, that's a team I don't want in my group, thank you very much. That's not a free hit. What we're doing is we're disrupting it. We're disrupting it in a way that no team's disrupted the Champions League in a long time, in my memory anyway.
Mitch, anyone who's been a manager and you have a team working for you, doesn't matter what, whether it's sport, whether it's a normal, you've got a team and you're in competition with other teams. So your job is to make that team better. So what you have to do initially is make them overachieve. And then when they start overachieving consistently, that becomes the norm. The bar gets raised higher. Then you get better players in the team, or better, I don't know, it made your better salesman in the team. And then you get more reward from making someone who was seen as not good into being a top salesperson, as in Joe Linton. That's where you get the pleasure from. You can get someone from another company, he's a top salesman, and you can mold him, put your way in it, and make you progress. But we're at that stage now where we have people like Miley. That's where the free hit comes. The Mileys and the Andersons, where they can learn from better players. We keep referring to Foden, but where they can learn from that and progress from there, we could save ourselves millions. And this transfer window, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is not over, and it'll be our last big transfer window for 2 years because of the amortization, because of the financial fair play. But we'll have a squad that's more than capable, and it'll just need tweaked. One player in that window, but it'll be a player that makes the squad, makes the player better. So this window is really, really important. They know it, we know it, and guess
Absolutely.
what? The Man United, the Liverpool, the Chelsea love and press, they know it as well. So they'll do as much as they can to disrupt us. Don't bite, because they are scared of what we're going to do.
You
just
know
wanna-
my
just wanna-
philosophy on staff that work with me is I will manage them up or I will manage them out. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely
Just got
that
a perfect
simple.
example of that, haven't
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I want to ask a question.
Okay,
Go on,
Steve,
let's
sorry,
finish
I
off.
shut you. No,
Sure,
no, I was just going to say, I've had
Listen,
I've had a situation this week with somebody who, frankly, she's got an IQ of about 6. She's at sort of the I collect bogies level of intelligence. And the boss was ready to fire her. And she's had a week working with me, and now the boss is wondering what's going on. And it says, well, because I've treated her in a different way than everybody else, and I've managed her up a little bit. And that's doable. And this is where somebody like Eddie Howe and his team, they will do one of those two things. They will either take a player and manage them up, or you manage them out. And if you manage them out, then whoever you bring in, you make sure you bring in something that's better than what you've let go. It's not rocket science.
Is there a ghost online, says Bill? No, well, there is, because my name's Wraith, and it's that means ghostly apparition. But it's just me picture so bad, lads. I mean, most of you would say it's an improvement. But there's a couple of questions. I'll take Andrew Malloy's last, I think, because he sent me a tweet and he wants me to discuss that, and I know he'll be watching. Let's just talk about, because we've spent a lot of time talking about the finances. Let's go back to this. Lee Erickson just wants to know, and again, this is, do you think there'll be a sponsor unveiled prior to the Seller Cup to enhance the financial fair play ability? We've already spoken about training kits still up for grabs, various things. Grass cutters could be sponsored. It doesn't really matter. And any news on other sponsorships, it's a question on the professionals we'll get every week. I've not heard anything. What about you guys? Do you think there's anything in there? I mean, the Seller Cup on August the 5th and 6th would make sense.
Personally, from my point of view, I've not heard anything concrete. I was told a long time ago that everything's up for grabs. But like I said earlier today, we can't do anything until we've got that shirt front signed off, ratified, rubber stamped and inked and everything by the Premier League. And I think they've been dragging their heels because it throttles us a little bit. And the more it goes on, I hate conspiracy theories, hate them with a passion. But the more evidence you get that, well, you get someone like, again, Master's comments even about the SM. Well, this transfer isn't official yet. Well, right, is it not?
It is now.
Why?
That's how
you know, and so for me, when you've got that going on, it's very difficult not to suggest that there's some sort of conspiracy theory going on. But we can't do anything until we have that shirt front ratified, agreed, rubber stamp, etc., and the ink's dry on the paper. Once that happens, then we're going to benchmark, and we can value everything else off of that, because that's how Man City do it and everybody else do it.
Is that the goal?
Chatsy Rob's unhappy. Probably about sponsorships, to be fair. So I think until we have that set up, then and ratified, then you can't start to really talk about other things. The Chelsea one's fascinating about Paramount Plus, mainly because the Premier League didn't really explain why they rejected that, and then it turned out 2 weeks later they were in talks with the FA about taking the FA Cup on under their arm and selling the broadcasting rights for the FA Cup. And suddenly you think, right, okay, that's why you can't have that, because they may be bidding for the FA Cup. It's ridiculous, mate. And I genuinely think we've been threatened a little bit by it. I think we'll see other things happen. But again, that then links into so many other things. What's Castoria's capacity to turn around and say, right, here's the training kit, but we've got a new sponsor on it? When are they going to land, and how many are we going to get? I think Castoria's production capacity and their ability to fuck things up have been a real problem for us. I'm quite happy with the shirt designs. I don't have a problem with necessarily with the quality of the shirts. I've seen some of them. But again, our shirt sleeve sponsor here in Dubai, Noon, still has a coming soon on their Newcastle United web store. They have no stock of anything, even third kit, socks, nothing. And that's ridiculous. and that's affecting one of our other main sponsors, for God's sake. You know, so I think that's another discussion entirely. I think other sponsors will come. They'll be at a ratified amount, and I don't think there's any problem with that. And that again ultimately helps FFP in the long run.
Right.
Stu, what's
Just
your
what you
views on
said
this
there,
before I move to the last? Before I move on to the last point.
Well, when you mentioned there about Custori, right, and the strips, they are good designs. Where they've let themselves down is being able to actually give to meet the supply or meet the demand, supply the demand.
Just produce something.
They're dreaming big, which is no bad thing. But when you can't deliver, it's a bad reflection. And unfortunately, the club take the blame for that. The club didn't do an agreement with Custori. They inherited it. But if you compare it to PIF, they think big and then they deliver. And it's a common theme in Dubai where impossible means I'm possible. In other words, nothing is impossible. We can be as good as we want to be, and they want us to be the best. The chairman said it on record, on video. It's there for all to see. We will be number one. That's enough for me.
I'll take you to something else that was said this week, and it was just said subtly in the background that our transfer policy was in part thought out and in part opportunistic. If it's genuine that Elise has a 35 million release clause, and it's come out that he's been speaking to Man City at that, we're in. We're in. Because these are the opportunistic transfers that we will take, like, for example, Isaac at the end of that window, when suddenly it went from, well, no, we're not going to afford him, to, oh, there's something being triggered. Lewis Hall's another one. Interestingly, and I don't know whether you can read too much into these things, but apparently on his official Instagram, he's been following Newcastle and Trippier and a load of Newcastle players. Though for me, I don't know whether agents and players do this just to try and false shit. That there's something potentially in the wind, and so let's hammer it, you know, and let's see if we can push this. I think, as somebody's just said, Craig Hope's one of the ones that I'm very comfortable to listen to and interact with. We had a fantastic couple of hours with him in Riyadh.
Could be a Frank Chipper special, lad. I've just had a look at Craig Hope's Twitter, and there's nothing on there about
could
that.
Be as well.
So you never know.
Do like Frank Chipper and the disruption he causes. Do you know why? Because just while that's all going on, the club are going on in the background doing what they're really doing, and it's great.
You know what it needs? What Frank Chipper does, it puts a bit of lightheartedness in it, the seriousness, and
you guys know.
Oh no!
You guys know. I used to be part of in the days of chat rooms and forums, part of Scumbags, which was chaos personified. And a lot of the lads I still speak to on Twitter are Scumbags, and you can work it out when we start talking in code mainly, you know, and that was the kind of place where things like this used to come from. A lad called Tom who used to spread all kinds of shit across different forums. Oh, well, that transfer's not happening because he's fielding medical. And that actually hit the national papers on 2 or 3 occasions then. Certain transfers were off because they failed the medical, and they just hadn't. It was just like making shit up. You know, and this is no different at all. And there's a little devious part of me who loves that. I love it. Because especially now, it's a wonderful smoke screen for the club just to say, let's get shit done.
Well, you know, Mitch, just when we're talking about Craig Hope, who is probably one of the most reliable sources, and I won't put anything on Twitter like you do it, like Steve Hasty doesn't, unless we know for a fact what we're seeing is fact. I shared something with you and Steve regarding Harvey Barnes. I knew he was at the ground. I knew he was at the ground because the person who told me was at the ground saying Harvey Barnes is here, and that was on Thursday morning. So no, we sit back, and I shared it with you and Steve, and I thought, right, we'll just leave it at that. There's no need to go about it being Billy Big Bollocks and etc. But then Craig Hope put a message out saying, rumour has it that Harvey Barnes is at the training ground, and I went, well, he's not. He's at the stadium
The
right now. Right now. And then about 30 minutes later, the photograph come out that looked like one of those, just to prove that you're not a bot, wasn't it? Like you had to put in the grid and find the footballer, and you had to, because it was all crosses, wasn't it? And that's what it looked like. So
Find Harvey Barnes.
there he was there, and I know, as you're aware, that he'd had the medical the night before. So it was quite clear you don't have a player for a medical and in the ground taking photos if he hasn't already signed. So when they release it, it's up to the club, it's up to the sellers, up to the buyer. And there could be reasons for it. It might be the Arabic weekend being Fridays, Saturdays, and money's getting transferred. It might be they're waiting for St. Maxim. There's a multitude of reasons why that transfer wasn't announced. But everything that they do is done for a reason. So our job is to support the team, and this team is probably the best we've seen for a generation. That's our job. It's not to criticise or look for criticism. It's to get behind them and what a team we've got. If anyone watched that video yesterday, I retweeted it and I got hundreds of likes. It wasn't my video. It was a fan in New Zealand, I believe. Vinyl, someone, and I'm sorry I can't remember his Twitter handle. But any Newcastle fan watching that, you've got to get it. Just gets you, doesn't it? It gets you in the heart. It gives you the lump in the throat. It gets the hair standing up, and you think, this is us. This is what this team has achieved last season. Next season, we're going to have a better team. We've got nothing really to complain about. Stop finding things to complain about. Let's get together and be as happy as we should be. We're in dreamland compared to what we've had the last 20 years.
We've got about 6 minutes left. We did promise everybody that we would go into a 90-minute show, so here we are, and we're probably going to get over that. But Andrew Malloy did send us a question, and I did promise him I would ask. So he says, possible discussion for the professionals, lads. He says, I know the transfer window doesn't close until the end of August, but I can see Howe's frustration at not having players through the door now. As we saw with Gordon last year, players come to the club fit, but not how fit. If players come through near deadline day and try to play to our intensity, there'll be a higher chance of injuries or take a while to get out of how fitness. And this could be detrimental to the squad. Hello, son.
Oh, you false.
Can't fucking what you fucking say.
You plastic cockney. Get off the tree. Get off this.
Well, I see your lips move. Your lips are moving. That's it.
You're not going to give you a clip next time I see you.
So anyway, as I was saying, Andrew Malloy said, signing players later in the window. He's worried about the fitness. They're not going to be how fit. He says if players come through near deadline day and try to play at our intensity, there'll be a higher chance of injuries or take a while to get up to how fitness. And this could be detrimental to the squad, as we'll have midweek games most weeks till Christmas. What do you think of that, lads? It's an interesting post. I don't think, from me personally, I know where he's coming from, but what's your views?
If you ask any manager, when do you want your players in with this transfer window? They'll all say, now. They all will. And that's nothing to do with being how fit or anything else. They'll say it's about getting people used to the tactical situation, getting used to relationships within the dressing room, what have you. The bottom line is, yes, if you listen to people like what Anthony Gordon said during the under-21s about arriving and thinking he was fit and not realising he was fit enough. If you look at how he's always eased people in for a period of 5 or 6 games, because I genuinely do believe there is fit and there's Eddie Howe fit. And I think Eddie Howe fit is the next level. And again, I think that makes one of the differences with our dressing room. So anybody, if you say to the manager, when do you want to get players? Well, as soon as possible, thanks. So that makes sense, The reality is, we will be involved, I believe, in deals in and out all the way up to the last minute of the window because of this one line about being opportunistic. And I think opportunistic, it says to me, we're ready to go down avenues that we wouldn't necessarily explore as plan A, but if plan B ticks a box and gives us something extra, then fantastic. So it's a bit of a yes and no. Yes, I think you would ideally like everybody in as soon as possible. But I don't think he'll mind if he's given at the last minute. You know what? If Eddie Howe was to go ballistic because they give him Neymar at the closing of the transfer window, would he go ballistic? I don't think he would. Would Neymar ever be Eddie Howe fit? I doubt it. That's another discussion. But I do think it's like the whole concept of being Eddie Howe fit makes sense, but I don't think it really matters in the long term. I think as long as Howe's got a squad that he's happy with by the time the transfer window closes, you can't really complain.
Okay, Stu, what's your views on that?
I think the question answered itself, because you can praise how the team, the coaching staff have done it, and they've been quite consistent in blending people in. So do you think they would play people if they didn't believe they were how fit, as the phrase goes? No. To me, I still don't think Tonali will start the first game of the season. I think Sean Longstaff will, just to let him savour the atmosphere, savour the crowd, and see what this lad does. See the effort he does, see the runs he does, see the work rate he does. This is why we bought you. You have to prove you're better than this. And then bring him on for 10, 20, 30 minutes. Eventually he'll get his place, as long as he earns it and deserves it. And I don't think Eddie Howe is shy. He doesn't play players because of their transfer fee. He plays them because they fit the system and they're capable of producing from what he sees in day out in the training ground. The biggest obstacle I think we'll have this coming season, and people keep talking about, we'll be playing twice a week. If we're led to believe everything that's been said about us, we're going to finish bottom of the Champions League. And from that, we won't play the first game of the League Cup. So we're only going to play 5 more midweek games unless we're successful. So if we're successful, that's better for us. If not, those 5 weeks means it's 5 weeks without doing the training because of the travelling and getting the squad together. And this is where the squad unity, the squad togetherness, where Eddie Howe speaks, they all listen and accept. Even if they disagree with his decisions, they accept it. And think, right, he knows what he's doing. They've all bought into the same thing. And this is why the siege mentality that's been created and silly press that I mentioned earlier are still pushing the same vendettas. Let them keep doing it. The best we can do is not reply, zip our mouths and just let them crack on, because it's the old story back in the day, and they used to pin up the bad press in the change room. That was your team talk done. Let them do it. We will be just fine. So regarding Eddie Howe, I don't think he's got a care of duty, and he showed last night's interview how much he cares about his players. And he didn't just say thank you, he grabbed that microphone. And that was off the cuff. It wasn't premeditated. And he spoke from the heart there. He spoke from the heart. He cares for these players, and that's how you earn respect. You show that you'll die in the battlefield for them, and they'll do the same for you. And he's got the trust.
He did similar in Riyadh. He dived in a couple of times on questions.
Yeah.
From the floor even.
But remember when he looked at the
when players were speaking?
Father, didn't he?
Oh, that he was like a doting father.
100%.
100%. And that's exactly what we saw firsthand in the same room. And it's not changed a single bit. In fact, if anything, that's probably stronger.
Absolutely.
I want to dedicate this show to Gemma. And T-Tank put this post up in the chat earlier on. It says, I normally keep everything private and to myself, but I can't do it with this matter. My last Gemma just got the all clear with cancer on Friday, and I got the all clear 8 weeks ago.
Fantastic.
I am bouncing. Well done, T-Tank, who was a regular in the chat. And great news on your lass as well, mate. It's a horrible, horrible disease. As everybody knows, I lost my mother to cancer last year, like many have done over the years, and want to dedicate a wonderful show, our first 90 minutes professionals, to you and your lass. Have a great night. I'll certainly have a drink for you tonight. I'm sure the lads will. They don't need any excuse. But that's been great. Class show tonight. 90 minutes makes a big difference. Hope it's a regular thing. It is, Mark. It is. We are definitely going to do that. Mitch, Stu, thanks for joining us. Go to a well-earned drink, and we will regroup on Wednesday night for Geordie's here. Geordie's there. Until then, take care, lads. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. And congratulations to T-Tank.
Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you want to order some, then you can go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks also to New Workwear. They were set up in 2018, and they are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. You can find them at their website, newworkwear.com. Thanks to Media Arts as well for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under this video. Hit the thumb up to like the video, and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. If you'd like to take out a cult membership, which means you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw, and put your smartphone over this QR code now. It'll take you straight to the site. You can set up and pay a one-off fee of £25. Alternatively, go to NUFCmatters.com and check for membership. If you're a subscriber, you can apply for a free car sticker. Just email John at NUFCmatters.com to claim yours today. The new Shearer raffle is up and running. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket to win a limited edition Alan Shearer signed ball. Enter now at NUFCmatters.com. We've got a couple of events coming up. Newcastle United question and answer live with Liam Kennedy, Jordan Cronin and Dominic Skerr from Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette in association with NUFC Matters. Takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre, 11th of August at 7 p.m, and tickets are £5. The Christmas event will be with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday, December the 7th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 from NUFCmatters.com. And Waddle, Keegan and Beardsley, the class of 84, with special guests, takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westcott Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 25th. Tickets are available direct from the theatre, 0844 24 91 000, or go to the website for further details. And don't forget, starting on the 7th of August, you will be able to hear myself, Steve Wraith, on the Northeast Footy Breakfast. This comes to you in association with the Toon Radio, 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 5 days a week. Check out the Facebook for more details. We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at NUFCmatters.com to arrange today.